The moment Jake Sullivan watched his daughter collapse on stage during her school play, time seemed to freeze. His world narrowed to her small body crumpling like a marionette with cut strings, and in that terrible silence before the screams began, he locked eyes with a woman in the audience who was already moving toward his daughter while everyone else stood paralyzed. He couldn't have known then that this stranger would become the center of his broken universe, or that sometimes life's most devastating moments lead to its greatest blessings. If you've ever believed in second chances or the power of unexpected love, this story might just restore your faith. Like and subscribe to follow more stories that remind us how life's most beautiful chapters often begin with its most painful pages. Jake Sullivan had mastered the art of functioning on autopilot. Wake up at 5:30 a.m. Prepare Lily's lunch. Make breakfast. Wake Lily at 6:15. Help her dress. Drop her at school by 7:30. Work until 3 o'clock. Pick up Lily. Homework. Dinner. Bath. Bedtime story. Collapse into bed. Repeat. For 3 years since Sarah's death, this had been his life, a carefully constructed routine designed to keep both him and his 8-year-old daughter afloat in a world that had capsized beneath them. The school play was a deviation from routine, but Lily had been so excited about her role as the son in her class production that Jake had rearranged his entire work schedule to attend. He sat in the third row of the elementary school auditorium, phone ready to capture every moment of his daughter's performance. The lights dimmed, and children dressed as planets began their orbits across the stage. Jake's chest swelled with pride as Lily stepped forward, her golden costume catching the stage lights. "I am the sun," she began, her voice clear and confident. "The center of the solar system." That's when it happened. Mid-sentence, Lily's words slurred. Her small body swayed, and before Jake could process what was happening, she collapsed. The auditorium fell silent for one terrible heartbeat before erupting into chaos. Jake vaulted over the seats in front of him, but someone was already kneeling beside his daughter. A woman with dark curly hair had somehow reached Lily first. She had turned Lily onto her side and was checking her breathing. "I'm a doctor," she said without looking up as Jake crashed to his knees beside them. "She's having a seizure. We need to keep her airway clear and make sure she doesn't hurt herself." Jake watched in helpless terror as his daughter's body jerked and trembled. The woman, the doctor, maintained a calm presence, her hands steady as she protected Lily's head. "My name is Elena," she said, her voice a lifeline in the storm of Jake's panic. "Your daughter will be okay, but we need to get her to a hospital." "Is there a history of seizures?" Jake shook his head, unable to form words as the school principal called for an ambulance. The next hours passed in a blur of emergency rooms, tests, and terrifying medical terminology. Through it all, Dr. Elena Reyes remained. She wasn't even Lily's assigned doctor, she had simply been at the play to watch her nephew perform, but she stayed, translating the medical jargon into terms Jake could understand, her presence a strange comfort in the sterile hospital corridors. When the diagnosis finally came, epilepsy, likely triggered by a previously undetected congenital condition, Jake felt the ground shift beneath him again. Another challenge. Another mountain to climb when he was already exhausted from the journey so far. "Mr. Sullivan," Elena said, finding him in the hospital cafeteria at 2 a.m., staring blankly at a cold cup of coffee. "Lily's stable and sleeping. You should rest too." Jake looked up at her, really seeing her for the first time. She had kind eyes, deep brown with flecks of amber, and laugh lines that suggested a life of joy despite the seriousness of her profession. "I can't leave her," he said. Elena nodded, understanding without judgment. "Then at least eat something." She pushed a sandwich toward him. "Lily's going to need you strong." That night marked the beginning. Elena wasn't Lily's regular doctor, but she checked in frequently during their 3-day hospital stay. She brought Lily a stuffed son to replace the costume she'd been wearing during the seizure. She explained the medication regimen with patience when Jake's exhausted mind couldn't retain the information. And when they were discharged, she slipped Jake her personal number. "Just in case you have questions," she said. Epilepsy can be scary, especially at first. Jake had questions. Many of them. What started as medical consultations gradually evolved into conversations. Elena's compassion extended beyond her professional obligations, and Jake found himself drawn to her warmth. For the first time in 3 years, he felt the ice around his heart beginning to thaw. But Jake's life was complicated. Raising Lily alone while managing his architectural firm left little room for anything else. And the ghost of Sarah, beautiful, vibrant Sarah who had been taken by a drunk driver on a rainy Tuesday evening, still haunted the corners of their home. How could he even think about another woman when Sarah's clothes still hung in their closet, when her favorite mug still sat on the kitchen shelf, when her absence remained a physical ache? Lily, however, had no such reservations about Elena. After her initial fear of hospital subsided, she became fascinated by Elena's job and bombarded her with questions whenever they met for follow-up appointments. Elena answered each one with the same seriousness she would give a medical student, never talking down to Lily. "Dad, did you know that Dr. Elena can see inside people's bodies with special machines?" Lily announced one evening after an appointment. "She showed me pictures of my brain. It looks like a big wrinkly walnut." Jake smiled, grateful for Elena's kindness toward his daughter. "Dr. Elena is very good at explaining things, isn't she?" "She said I'm super brave," Lily continued, her chest puffing with pride. "And that my brain just works a little differently than other kids, but that's okay because different can be special." The way Elena had framed Lily's condition, not as a defect but as a difference, touched Jake deeply. She had given his daughter something he had been struggling to provide, acceptance without fear. As winter melted into spring, Jake found himself inventing reasons to text Elena. A question about Lily's medication. A concern about a side effect that turned out to be nothing. Each time, Elena responded promptly, her messages professional but tinged with a personal warmth that made Jake check his phone more often than he cared to admit. It was Lily who finally forced his hand. 6 months after her diagnosis, with her condition stable on medication, she announced over dinner, "I think we should invite Dr. Elena for pizza night." Jake nearly choked on his water. "What? Why?" Lily rolled her eyes with the exasperation only an 8-year-old could muster. "Because she's nice and she likes pepperoni just like us. She told me." "Lily, Dr. Elena is very busy with her patients. I'm sure she doesn't want to spend her free time with us." "You won't know unless you ask," Lily said with the simple logic of childhood. "And you smile when you talk to her on the phone. You don't smile that much anymore, Dad." The observation hit Jake like a physical blow. Had he been so transparent? Had his loneliness been so obvious that even his daughter had noticed? That night, after tucking Lily in, Jake stared at his phone for a full 20 minutes before typing a message to Elena. He deleted and rewrote it 7 times before finally hitting send. "Lily has requested your presence at our Friday pizza night. No pressure, but there will be pepperoni." Elena's response came almost immediately, "I never turn down good pizza or good company." "What time?" Friday arrived with a flurry of nervous energy. Jake cleaned the house twice, changed his shirt 3 times, and nearly burned the garlic bread he decided to make as an accompaniment to the delivered pizza. Lily, oblivious to her father's anxiety, bounced around the house in excitement, setting the table with their fancy plates, the ones they usually reserved for Christmas dinner. When the doorbell rang, Jake's heart leaped into his throat. He opened the door to find Elena holding a small potted plant and a box of cupcakes. "I wasn't sure what to bring," she admitted with a sheepish smile. "The plant is a peace lily. I thought Lily might appreciate the name connection. And the cupcakes are from that bakery near the hospital that everyone raves about." "You didn't have to bring anything," Jake said, stepping aside to let her in. "But thank you." Lily appeared in the hallway, her face lighting up at the sight of Elena outside the context of hospitals and doctors' offices. "Dr. Elena. You came. I wouldn't miss pizza with my favorite patient," Elena said, kneeling down to Lily's level. "And I brought you something." Lily's eyes widened at the peace lily. "A plant with my name. Can I keep it in my room, Dad?" "Of course," Jake said, watching the interaction with a warmth spreading through his chest. "But remember, plants need care and attention." "Like people," Elena added with a smile that reached her eyes. That first dinner stretched into 3 hours of conversation and laughter. Elena fit into their small family unit with surprising ease, drawing Lily out of her shell and engaging Jake in conversations that had nothing to do with illness or medication. She told stories about her large Cuban-American family in Miami, about her decision to become a neurologist after her grandfather's stroke, about her love of salsa dancing and terrible sci-fi movies. As the evening wound down and Lily reluctantly went to bed, after extracting a promise from Elena to return soon, Jake found himself alone with Elena in the living room, the remains of their meal spread across the coffee table. "Thank you for tonight," he said, suddenly awkward without Lily's chatter to fill the silence. "It's been a while since we've had a guest for dinner." Elena studied him with those perceptive eyes. "How long has it been, Jake?" "Since Sarah?" The direct question caught him off guard. Most people tiptoed around the subject of his wife's death, afraid to cause pain by mentioning her name. 3 years, 2 months, and 14 days, he answered honestly. "But who's counting, right?" Elena didn't offer platitudes or pity. Instead, she asked, "Tell me about her?" "If you want to." And surprisingly, Jake did want to. He found himself telling Elena about Sarah's passion for photography, her terrible singing voice that didn't stop her from belting out songs in the shower, her habit of reading the last page of a book first. He showed her photos and shared stories until he realized with a start that he was smiling instead of aching. "She sounds wonderful," Elena said softly when he finally fell silent. "Lily has her smile." "Yes," Jake agreed. "She does." When Elena left that night, something had shifted. Jake stood in the doorway watching her drive away, feeling lighter than he had in years. He had spoken about Sarah without drowning in grief. He had laughed genuinely. He had connected with another adult on a level deeper than polite small talk or parenting logistics. Pizza night became a tradition. Every other Friday, Elena would arrive with some small gift for Lily and a warmth that gradually thawed the frozen parts of Jake's heart. She helped Lily with science homework, introduced them both to Cuban food, and brought a vibrancy to their home that had been missing for too long. But as spring turned to summer, Jake's feelings for Elena grew more complicated. He found himself thinking about her at odd moments, when he caught the scent of her perfume lingering in his home after she'd left, when he heard a song she'd mentioned liking, when he saw something that would make her laugh. The guilt came in waves, crashing over him when he least expected it. One night, after Lily was asleep, Jake found himself in the closet he still shared with Sarah's clothes. He ran his fingers over her dresses, the fabric cool and lifeless under his touch. "I don't know what to do," he whispered to the empty room. "I don't know if I'm allowed to feel this way again." No answer came, of course. Just the quiet ticking of the clock and the distant sound of a neighbor's dog barking. Jake sat on the floor of the closet surrounded by the remnants of his previous life and allowed himself to cry for the first time in months. The next morning, he called his mother-in-law, Margaret. Their relationship had been strained since Sarah's death, not from animosity but from shared grief that made their interactions painful. Still, if anyone would understand his conflict, it would be the woman who had raised and loved Sarah. "Jake," Margaret's voice was warm with surprise when she answered. "Is everything all right? Is Lily okay?" "Lily's fine," he assured her quickly. I needed to talk to you about something." There was a pause, and then Margaret said gently, "This is about the doctor, isn't it? The one Lily keeps mentioning in our video calls." Jake shouldn't have been surprised that Lily had talked about Elena. His daughter had never been good at keeping secrets, especially happy ones. Yes, he admitted. Her name is Elena. She's been important to us these past few months. And you feel guilty, Margaret stated rather than asked. Yes. Margaret sighed, a sound full of her own grief and wisdom. Jake, listen to me. Sarah loved life more than anyone I've ever known. She wouldn't want yours to stop because hers did. She especially wouldn't want Lily to grow up in a home without joy. But it feels like betrayal, Jake confessed, his voice breaking. Like I'm erasing her. Love doesn't work that way, Margaret said firmly. It's not a finite resource. Loving someone new doesn't diminish what you had with Sarah. It honors it. It says that she taught you how to love so well that you're brave enough to risk your heart again. Jake let her words sink in, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. I miss her every day. So do I, Margaret replied. And we always will. But Sarah would kick both our butts if she knew we were using her memory as an excuse to avoid living. After hanging up, Jake sat in silence, processing the conversation. Margaret had given him permission, but more importantly, she had helped him see that he didn't need it. Sarah would always be Lily's mother and a vital part of their story. But perhaps it was time to start a new chapter. The opportunity came sooner than he expected. The following week, Elena called with an unusual request. I have tickets to the symphony this Saturday, she said, her voice slightly nervous over the phone. My friend cancelled, and I thought, maybe you'd like to go? Just you, not Lily. Which means you'd need a sitter, so it's completely fine if you can't. I'd love to, Jake interrupted her rambling, surprising himself with his certainty. My neighbor can watch Lily. She's done it before. There was a pause, and then Elena said, Is this a date, Jake Sullivan? The directness of the question made him laugh. Yes, Dr. Reyes. I believe it is. The symphony date was both wonderful and terribly awkward. Jake hadn't been on a date in over a decade, and he felt like a teenager again, nervous, self-conscious, hyper-aware of every word and gesture. Elena wore a blue dress that made her eyes shine, and Jake found himself staring at her when he should have been watching the orchestra. You're missing the music, she whispered at one point, catching him looking at her. I'm hearing it just fine, he replied. But the view from here is better. Elena's smile in response was worth every moment of anxiety that had preceded it. After the symphony, they walked through the city park, the summer night warm around them. Their conversation flowed easily, punctuated by comfortable silences that didn't need to be filled. When Elena's hand brushed against his, Jake took a leap of faith and gently laced his fingers with hers. She squeezed his hand in response, and something settled in Jake's chest, a feeling of rightness he hadn't expected to experience again. I should tell you something, Elena said as they neared the park exit. I've never dated a patient's parent before. There are ethical considerations. Jake's heart sank. Is this a problem professionally? Not exactly. Lily isn't my direct patient anymore, she sees Dr. Patel for her regular care. I consulted on her case, but I'm not her primary neurologist. Elena stopped walking and turned to face him. But I want to be transparent. If we pursue this, I would need to formally recuse myself from any future medical decisions regarding Lily. That seems reasonable, Jake said, relief washing over him. There's something else, Elena continued, her expression serious. I don't take relationships lightly, Jake. And yours is a package deal. I care about Lily, not just as a doctor cares for a patient, but as someone who has grown to love her spirit and courage. Whatever happens between us affects her too. The words love and Lily in the same sentence from Elena's lips made Jake's heart expand. I know, he said softly. That's one of the reasons I'm standing here with you. You saw her, really saw her, from the beginning. Not just her condition.